Hey, what's up guys? I have 5 tips to bust your fat loss stalls. And during the dieting process, whether you're coming down for contest prep, just general fat loss, we can always come into this problem of, hey, the scale's not moving. I feel like I'm stalled out. What's going on? What should be my next choice from there? And with the dieting process, there's adaptations that are occurring along the whole process to try to slow down and prevent body fat loss from occurring. Decreases in metabolic rate through lots of hormones that are getting regulated, drops in your anabolic hormones, increases in catabolic hormones and hunger signaling hormones, everything trying to make you not lose body fat and just go eat more. And within that process, it can make your deficit shrink to where eventually you get close to a maintenance calorie level, and you do have to make some decisions to push past what can be a stall. Now, you have to actually say, and this is point number 1, or tip number 1, is being honest with yourself. And part of that will have to be accurately tracking your energy intake and your output. Because a lot of times, part of what we see when people are coming down a diet is that inadvertently, they are incidentally kind of increasing calorie intake through small little bits of like not weighing things quite accurately. This also might be on adding in condiments that are low calorie. But if you're someone that's on like a 1,300 calorie diet and these little things add up to 100 calories, you could easily add 10% of your calories for the day through these little things, and all of a sudden you're not quite at a deficit anymore. And same thing goes with energy output, and this is probably one of the biggest ones. I've made dietary changes for individuals or cardio increases, and they're like, I'm doing the diet, I'm doing the cardio, but my weight loss is just nothing happening. And what's happening is all the time between meals and between training is that they're sitting down more. They're becoming more sedentary, and it's actually making up for the deficit that you created. So it's not a true stall, it's the energy output is lower. So you have to be just accurate with tracking food, making sure you're not adding anything else in, and anything that you do, you're measuring and accounting for. And then for energy output, use something like a step tracker. It's kind of an indirect way to count total activity level. You can still be active and not taking a lot of steps, but it is something way to track to make sure your step count isn't decreasing or trending downward as you're trying to decrease food and increase cardio, and that be the reason why you're not seeing those changes. Now, say you are someone like, no, John, I'm perfectly counting my food, I'm counting my steps and my cardio, and I am not moving here. It's like, okay, well, let's test the waters. This is tip number 2. Let's see if it truly is a stall. We're gonna do a refeed day. This will be a high carbohydrate day, which will boost up insulin levels, blood glucose. It's gonna lower cortisol. And what I see a lot of people that if they've been put into a deficit and the scale's not changing, you give them one of these high carbohydrate days, and then you'll see the next day that the body weight drops down. They may have had a great night's sleep. They're like, man, I feel great and fresh. And all that fat loss that was occurring is just finally revealed the next day once you have this water loss that does occur through this high day. Then you can say, okay, you know what? You weren't actually stalled out. We're just seeing this linear downward trend like you do see in fat loss. So you have to be patient in this process. But if you think you are at a stall, like a first step would be, let's just make sure you actually might have a stall by doing a refeed day. And this would be something of increasing calories by 20% for the day, purely from carbohydrate, as this is the most impactful on a lot of these hormones and cortisol and insulin levels. And then we can assess from there. Now, this gets to tip number 3. So if you do this refeed day and you're like, man, nothing happened, nothing changed, my scale weight increased. For one, make sure you just wasn't the food volume, you just had really poor digestion that day, or it caused you to overeat. Also, make sure you keep in mind, even for females, that you're not seeing changes throughout the menstrual cycle as well, because if that coincides around that time, we might actually see body weight going up and it's hormone related, and we need to just look at your trends more over 2 to 3 week spans rather than a week by week basis. Now, if you do need to make the call, hey, I am truly stalled out, I do need to make a call of whether I should lower food, I should increase cardio, or maybe it's fat burner time. Between these 3, my first go-to is usually picking a decrease in food, as it's the most predictable, the best measurable route, because there's so many routes that you can implement cardio or increase NEAT, activity level steps, and it can be hard to account for that energy expenditure, especially with how do you monitor it on the actual cardio modality that you're doing. What with food, it's a fairly accurate measure of if you take out 200 calories, you know for a fact you took out 200 calories. So food will be the first choice to pull down. The caveat to that, as long as you have enough food to do so. And if you're someone that's like starving on your diet, I'm so hungry all the time, and cardio, I'll do more cardio. That's not a problem at all. Well, there's your answer. Do more cardio. Let the more sustainable, more adherent approach, let that be your guide. But I would still opt to choose food if we have plenty to play with here. For food decrease, what we can do is add in low days as a start. So we'll keep 4 days out of the week, your normal diet that you've been doing, 3 days out of the week on your easiest days of the week. So maybe these are off days, maybe those days you train arms. We'll drop calories down 20%. And this can be a mix of carbohydrate fats, really base that around your preferences, because what we do see is whether you're dieting on lower carbs or lower fats, fat loss really doesn't change. The main thing I would say is that it upholds your training performance. So if you're getting too low in carbs, you're seeing the gym performance decline in that day, maybe bring the carbs up and keep the fats a little bit lower then. So for the average for the week, you'll see about a 10% calorie drop. That should get you moving. Now tip number 4. Food's not an option to adjust, or maybe you already adjusted food and you need to adjust cardio now. So we have some options, and my choice for doing cardio is usually having a baseline of moderate intensity cardio for health purposes. And then the rest is through activity or step count. So for bodybuilding physique goals, we want the least impactful cardio for our resistance training, so what's not going to affect our training the most, create the less fatigue, for the best energy output. And walking is very, very low fatiguing. It can take more time though. That's the balance that you have to strike with it. So within that, what I would say is let's try to increase 200 calorie expenditure. This could be walking about, on average, it's going to be depending on your body weight, 2 miles, which is 4,000 steps a day. 2,000 steps is about a mile. So we can start there. Let's walk, for 2 20-minute sessions a day, totaling 40 minutes. Very low impact, very, very easy to do. Now if you're like, John, I don't have the time to do that. I just need to get in, do some like higher energy cost activity. Well, let's add 15 minutes of cardio to your sessions. This could be 4 to 5 days a week, and then go from there, see if that would bring you down. But again, you have to make sure you uphold all the other variables of staying active throughout the day, and you don't do your 15 minutes extra cardio, then you just sit longer for 2 hours throughout the day. You could even do a mix of both. Maybe you bump 10 minutes of cardio up a few days, and you could try to increase some steps on the other days. Now, number 5, cardio. We looked at diet, fat burners. So a few things to look for increasing fatty acid oxidation would be a product that has like acetyl L-carnitine in it, which is more a bioavailable form of L-carnitine. L-carnitine has a role in transferring fatty acids into the mitochondria for oxidation. It's also been shown to help with preventing muscle soreness during training, and has this recovery aspect to it. Now, some good things to couple together would be caffeine for sure, increases lipolysis. It also can just increase your energy level, which can make you just move more throughout the day. So just kind of an indirect means of burning calories. And so one aspect to add with that is green tea. So green tea has polyphenols, and it does have a little bit of caffeine, but outside of the caffeine content, it helps to prolong the effects of your caffeine. So there's a really good synergy together with green tea and caffeine. So these are a great combination together. One product that is awesome, which here we go, is animal cuts. You can do the powder or the pills. You can start with 1 pack in the morning or a scoop in the morning, and then see if that pushes you past your fat loss plateau. Can help you get more energy throughout the day, help with fatty acid oxidation. Then if you feel like, man, I still need a bigger push, add in a second dose. It could be a second pack, or if you're doing the the powder, do another scoop of the powder, and that can keep pushing you along. So those are my 5 tips for busting your fat loss plateau. A bonus tip for you is if you find that you are having a hard time, you're like digging hard for fat loss, and your food's low, cardio's already really high, and you're still not moving along, you tried all these steps, it might be time just to have a diet break. And to give yourself the physical break to lower fatigue, but also the mental break, because you have to see out this fat loss and physique goals in the long-term process, and what's going to be sustainable and calories that adherence over the long trek. And sometimes 1 week back of coming up to maintenance calories, could do like a deload session during this where you reduce your training volume, you're not training all the way to failure, drop off all that fatigue. It can help with restoring a little bit of metabolic function, and just the mental break of it can help you feel a little bit freshened up to then go back to digging really hard rather than just like falling off the wagon and not being able to reach your goals anyway. So that's something to think about and implement. But again, remember, fat loss, it's not going to be easy. We're going to have to dig and get to some level of uncomfortability to make it happen. So use these tips. I hope they help out. If you think of any other ones, love to hear what y'all have to say. Leave in the comments below, and happy to answer any questions that y'all have.